Okay, more and more women are paying alimony to failure to launch ex-husbands, and they're really, really not happy about it. It's not just as simple as saying because men pay it, women should pay it too. Really? Really now? Her husband was supposed to be looking for a job. He'd promised her over and over, I'll work on my resume. I'll set up the informational interviews. I'll reach out to my contacts. Instead, he sat on her couch and watched made-for-TV Christmas movies. Oh my gosh. Well, this is what happens when you pick a man that makes less money than you. Michelle had met John when they were young. They connected years later. After she and her first husband, whom she had a child with, split. Not long after the romance began, John quit his job and moved into her apartment, saying he wanted to help out with childcare. Michelle, an executive, was a little nervous about his being unemployed. Plus, she shared custody with her ex, so she didn't actually need that kind of help. But she rolled with it, believing the whole situation was temporary. He was a hobosexual. She knows how it sounds now. At the time, though, she really had faith in him. They'd be smitten with each other, and John had indeed bonded with her kid. But after they got married, he never found work. He told her he wanted to change professions. I was like, God, please just get a job, she says. Like anything, Starbucks, barista, work at Harry's Teeter. Instead, he went back to school, out of town. It was a huge financial burden, Michelle says, adding that she was paying for her apartment and his place at school. Still, she was cautiously optimistic that he was working towards something. Over winter break, he came back to Washington obstinately for some informational interviews. Then Michelle determined that he was actually just binge watching the Hallmark Channel. I just felt like the biggest fool, Michelle says. I realized nothing had changed and he was going to be my dependent for the rest of my life. And that all the talk was going to amount to nothing, and it was horrific. She told him she wanted a divorce. During the separation, she says she paid for everything, legal fees, meditation, therapy. She was advised to protect her retirement plan, so she bought John out of the condo they owned. She also did something she never expected to do. She agreed to pay him alimony of $1,000 a month for more than a year. All I could think of was myself. I divorced my first husband, had his child, and had less than $300 a month in child support from him, she says. And I was going to be paying nearly 4 times as much in alimony to someone with whom I had not had a child and had supported this whole time. While I begged him to get a job, I couldn't believe it. Yeah, man, yeah. Why would you let I don't get it. You let somebody in your home you let somebody in your home that has no job. I don't get it. And you have a kid to worry about. The typical narrative around child support and alimony is that, for better or for worse, husband pays it to their ex-wives, but there's a growing demographic of Washington women who emerge from their marriages as the payers, not the recipients of this kind of financial restitution. Some of them have already coined a term for their phenomenon. They joke that they're paying galimony. And while no one is ever thrilled at the prospect of writing checks to an ex, divorce attorneys around the region report that a rising contingent of these female payers react to the prospect of sending support payments with pure outrage. Woo! Oh my God. It burns, doesn't it? It burns. It burns so much, doesn't it? Doesn't it? Woo! Man, this is oh man, this is crazy, man. This is crazy. Oh man, this is wow. I mean oh, these women are getting it, man. They just they feeling the pain. They feeling the pain, man. pain, baby, the pain. Now you know how we feel, man. You know, a lot of them were feeling mad too that when it came to Jennifer Hudson's situation with Altunga, that she had to pay child support. Okay. I think she had to pay him alimony. Okay. But you know, that's what happens. That's how it rolls, man. That's how it goes because hey, you who told you, like I said, you brought in a homosexual. How do you go from like you divorce your husband who had money, he's paying you child support, when you go to a dude that has no job, you married a man that had no job. He had no job. No job. And you marry him. That ish is so hilarious, man. And then you gotta pay the consequences for that, and you mad? This is equality, man. This is equality. I think it's important to go back to why was alimony created in the first place. Michelle says it's not just as simple as saying because men pay it, women should pay it too. No. This is why it was. It was for alimony was for a spouse who could not provide for themselves after the marriage was over. They couldn't. They were used to a certain lifestyle. Okay. And they couldn't work. So that's what it is. Sucks, doesn't it? What's noteworthy to me is the fury of the of the women, says Heather Hosser, a prominent divorce lawyer in Bethesda who handles cases in Maryland and DC. I just don't experience that as much with men who are confronted with the fact that they have to pay alimony. And part of the fury relates to the idea of what exactly am I paying for? You feel the same thing as men. You're an able-bodied woman. Go find a job. Okay? You have to find a job now. The divorce ended the marriage. So now you have to go and find a way to make ends meet. As long as it doesn't harm the kids. Give the kids to the father. But you live in somewhere, a shelter somewhere, because we're not together. And I'm not paying for a place that I can't come into. Not to suggest that every divorcee responds that way. Some, especially those with kids, feel just fine about providing financial support. But that there's a subset who do. Often these are women whose husbands did not expect to be the lower earning partner in their marriage and subsequently did not take that role reversal well. Instead of stepping up at home, the husband was leaned way back. And then, when it all ended, demanded the right to maintain their lifestyle. That's what alimony is for. It may be a shock to some women because they are not interested in supporting 9 times out of 10 what they call the loser, and that's why they're getting out of the marriage, because he's a loser or he strayed or whatever it might be, says Cheryl New, a family lawyer who has been practicing in Maryland and Virginia for 3+ decades. I think it's really hard emotionally for women to wrap their arms around this phenomenon, especially considering that in Maryland, Virginia, and DC, it doesn't even matter how long or how short your marriage was, you can still be made to pay. In legalese, money for your ex is called alimony in DC and Maryland. In Virginia, it's spousal support. But the word alimony can be so radioactive that some attorneys avoid it and use colloquially the euphemism of choices to describe payments for both children and a former spouse in support. In all 3 jurisdictions, child support is just that, but recipients don't have to account for how they spend the money or if the kids are involved. That child support could go toward your daughter's soccer cleats, could be blown on his new Xbox. Your guess is as good as anybody else's. This is what men go through. They pay child support. That money, instead of going to the kids, the money is going to the woman's fake hair, fake nails, beauty spa, and the kids are looking like they live in a shelter. For Michelle, the notion that her ex was someone entitled to the money from her, given the circumstances, was infuriating. I spent a lot of time being very bitter over how betrayed I felt, she says, adding that it took her 3 years to pay off all kinds of expenses she incurred during the marriage and the divorce, a six-figure sum in her estimation. Wow. I'm surprised she didn't end up on the Lifetime television show Snapped. A lot of women be killing their husbands. A lot of them do. Especially when it comes to money. It's not just infidelity. It's money too. I think it's important to go back to why was alimony created in the first place. Michelle says it's not so simple as saying because men pay it, women got to pay it too. People have been getting divorced almost as long as they've been getting married. Legal separations in states escalated during the 1820s and 30s as independence fever swept over former colonies. Imagine a nation of dissatisfied spouses saying, if England and America can break up, why can't we? And as the 19th century wore on, divorce rates continued to rise. For decades, undoing an I do involved convolution, court maneuvering, fault-based laws requiring specific grounds for termination. Merely unhappy husbands and wives squirmed their way through legal loopholes as best as they could until 1969, when the governor, Ronald Reagan, a divorcee sympathetic to their plight, signed California's Family Law Act, which gave disgruntled partners terminology for their insurmountable feelings and enshrines them as grounds for divorce. Irreconcilable differences. Ugh. But alimony is even older than divorce. It's as old as the Babylonian Code of Hammurabi, so as old as ancient Mesopotamia, circa 1792 BC. The American model is rooted in the ecclesiastical courts of England, through which, before the advent of divorced couples could seek a legal separation post-separation, a man was expected to continue to provide for the women he married. Along with Christianity and smallpox blankets, this system of alimony was brought by European settlers to America. Historically, a woman had alimony rights because she had no property rights during the marriage. An interesting trade-off that, and zero ability to earn her own money. Alimony then and now wasn't really about the woman's well-being so much as protecting the state from undue burden of taking care of her when her husband didn't want to provide for her anymore. 1979, citing the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment, the Supreme Court determined that this unequal treatment, wherein men are always payers and women the inevitable payees, was unconstitutional, thereby striking down the Alabama statute that required only men pay alimony to women. Oh, this is nice. This is nice. Although that case in the matter of Orr versus Orr, William Orr had been ordered to pay his ex-wife Lillian $1,240 a month. When he didn't pay up, she tried to have him found in contempt. He responded by arguing that Alabama's alimony statutes have been declared unconstitutional because they empowered courts to compel husbands to pay alimony, but never did the same to wives. Bold? No. William lost in the circuit court. He appealed all the way to SCOTUS, where a young Ruth Bader Ginsburg, then lawyering for the ACLU, filed a brief in his support. William ultimately prevailed, a win for equal rights that benefited men who didn't feel like paying their alimony payments, exactly the kind of feminist victory women the world over were rooting for. What they didn't understand was, feminists always want equality, but never the responsibility. That's the thing. Equality, but no responsibility, no accountability. So why does alimony, aka spouse support, still exist? The modern justification is threefold. One, if a couple has children, the court doesn't think it's in the kids' best interest for their quality of life to seesaw widely between their parents and homes. Two, a person without an income could very well end up relying on resources such as food stamps or other kinds of government support. The court is not so hot on that prospect. The deal is, hey, you married them, you don't get to make them the state's problem just because you don't like them anymore. And three, a lot of spouses, typically wives, sacrifice earning power in order to do the bulk of the home front labor, a career penalty for which alimony might compensate. Makes sense. Until recently, payers could ease their pain with the knowledge that their alimony was a tax write-off. As Hofstadter puts it, the greatest tax deduction known to man. Since January 1st, 2019, though, there's no longer the case. Alimony is now, in theory, just some genderless thing in which resources flow from the higher earner to the lower or non-earner. In practice, it has virtually been given for the half of the last half century or so that the higher earning spouse would be male. See the pay gap, abysmal, non-existent parental leave policies, insidious cultural norms that keep women from achieving their full economic potential. BS. I'll call BS on that because the wage gap is false. Okay. If you want to be paid more as a man, you must work the same hours as a man. Not going to pay you a certain amount of money if you're not willing to work those hours. That's it. Okay. You want to be paid just because you have ovaries. That's it. Basically, that's what it is. Pay me because I'm a woman. Get the hell out of here. But this given is a given no longer, says divorce lawyer Sandy N., whose name you'll surely recognize if you follow stories about the splits of mega lobbyists Tony and Heather Podesta, A and Rep Tony, or mom and pop shops owners turned retail multi-millionaires Herbert and Gloria Half and Rep Herbert. Years ago, you virtually never had a woman who was in a greater earning situation than her spouse, says Ann. Today is certainly not uncommon for it to occur. For the first time in American history, a critical mass of women are paying their male exes support. Ooh, it stings, doesn't it? Ooh. All that soul. I should have some fries, man. All that soul, put it on my fries. Salty. This occurrence is especially common in D.C., whereas straight single women have probably told you single college-educated men are outnumbered by their female peers, 53 to 47. The Washington area is a home of approximately 40,000 more single women with bachelor's degrees or higher than single men of the same academic pedigree. And some of those women are making some serious money. So much, in fact, that in the event they wind up divorcing, they need a professional to help them navigate their staggering assets. So they call Diane Nolan, a certified divorce finance analyst. Yes, that's an actual accreditation in Vienna, who works with the high net worth women. Nolan's specialty, zeroing in on the nitty gritty of who gets what. Is the beach house worth more than her? Than the pied a tree in the city? Does he really need the BMW SUV when they both know he's not planning to do after school carpool? Her client base executives at major corporations, attorneys, business owners, medical professionals, and some top real estate agents. When you consider the compensation package, that might be some of those things in addition to traditional earnings. They typically in the 750,000 and above, $1 million and above, Nolan says. High six figures. So a lot of these women, have to be careful. A lot of these women, they have to adhere to gender roles. Okay. That's their only escape. Feminism is not going to help you. It always puts you in a disadvantage, thinking you're equal to men. You're not. If you make more, if a woman makes six figures, she has no business dating a bum. She must date a man within the same tax bracket or above, period. That is what she has to do. And if you can't find a man of your own ethnic group, look for a man who makes six figures of a different ethnic group. It's that simple. Given the lifestyles both parties are used to, the payouts for the spouse of the power spouse can be substantial. It's not uncommon to see support that's $6,000, $8,000, $10,000 a month, Nolan says. I have one Virginia case, an executive at a Fortune 500 tech company, where support was upwards of $18,000 a month. One ex I spoke to told me that when she and her husband split 4 years ago, he cleared the house when he left. He took the TV, the china, my flatware, all of the things you would anticipate a man would say, I don't want this, you can have it. She pays child support and covers major bills for the kids, tuition, camp, insurance. It's a harsh reality, as she puts it. I often look into the mirror and wonder whether this whole feminism thing backfired on me. I just was talking about how it just puts them at a disadvantage. It does, because you're not a man. Okay? And a lot of these women don't get it. You want to be men, but you don't want the consequences and the burdens and responsibilities of being one. You want equality, but when it suits you, not when it doesn't. That's not equality. You don't want accountability. As long as it suits you, you'll take accountability. That's not how it works. You take accountability and you take responsibility, whether it sucks for you or not, whether it benefits you or not. Washington is also a hotbed of cross-income dating, possibly more than any other American city. Consider the contributing factors: a high density of very impressive but generously less than lucrative professional fields. The federal government, journalism, nonprofits, academia, alongside employers that pay buckets of money, like big law and lobbying, political consulting outfits, and tech companies. You've got disparate income brackets that attract nearly identical breeds of people, alumni of competitive schools with similar backgrounds and share cultural references, which is to say people who would definitely date, marry, and alas, divorce each other. Hotstetter calls the men in the most enraging of women's payout divorces, failure to launch exes, and she hears about them all the time. For sure, in the last 10 years, I've seen and represented many more women who fall into what I say is a very specific category. The wife is the breadwinner, but the husband is not necessarily performing the services of a traditional stay-at-home spouse. It's not just that these women are out earning their husbands. They're out parenting their husbands. They're out homemaking their husbands. They're out everything their husbands. That's not the husband's fault. That's her fault. You shouldn't have picked that man. But feminism tells you if you pick a man that's actually a man, you're weak. You're oppressed. Patriarchy's evil. Man bad. Paying alimony to a man, good. It was a struggle to even keep my husband employed, says Elizabeth, a communication exec who pays her ex child support in the high single-digit thousands. But he did virtually no domestic labor. If he emptied the dishwasher, he wanted a parade. He once said that he wasn't going to, and he literally did air quotes all morning, all the mommy things that sucked. Wow. I'll never forget the moment I realized, wow, I am making more money now, and I'm still the wife. I'm still doing all the stay-at-home mom stuff. I'm breaking my neck to get to the grocery store before a nanny has to get her bus so I could pick up groceries, dry clean, and do errands. It didn't just suck. It stunned. She'd been under the belief she'd entered into a progressive marriage between equals. I just love this nonsense of equals, man. Oh, man, I just love it. You want equality, but you bitch and complain about it at the same time. Who was this man who still thought emptying the dishwasher was a mommy thing to do? Who talks like that? I blindly went into thinking, okay, I'll do 50% and he'll do 50% and it'll be a partnership. And it was not. It ended up being the single mother of 3 children instead of 2. And that was a shock to me, that I had to do everything, including earn all the money. But you also have to walk on eggshells because you can't be a threat to their masculinity. Again, you chose this man. You chose this man. One woman in the Maryland suburbs recalled that she and her husband were prepared for him to out-earn her, but not for the alternative. There wasn't an expectation that I had to go out and be a primary breadwinner, she told me, which might have been part of the problem, actually. She wonders now if the values with which she and her husband were raised made the two of them, and maybe men and women of their entire generation, fundamentally mismatched. My mom, even though she hasn't been a stay-at-home mom, she'd say, you can be whatever you want to be in life. It's truly an option for you. And she raised me to expect that. She says, but I think that at the same time, my husband's mom raised him to expect the same treatment in the household as our fathers received, that he could make money and his wife would take care of home. The message: girls go out and live in an egalitarian world. Guys don't worry about ever having to do your laundry. She hasn't paid spousal support. I would have been very angry to pay alimony, I will admit, but she does cover a bigger share of the cost for their children. And she says she feels totally fine with that financial arrangement, despite the fact that she feels like she's still running point on the kids' lives, the same as when they were married. Stephanie, who lives in North Virginia, found herself in a similar situation after she has kids and went back to school. Her earnings kept rising, and she eventually became an executive. But her husband's plateaued, including bonuses, she tells me. She was making about 2.5 times his take-home pay. Yet, even as she climbed professionally, the worrying and the bottom line of what had to happen for our kids and family at home still fell to me. I feel my spouse picked and chose what he wanted to do. Stephanie says, leaving her to handle both the taxing mental labor and unglamorous grunt work of parenting. Take the vomiting child, for example, or the really awful school fundraiser. Well, that's basically it, man. Oh, man, this is hilarious, man. This is hilarious. Can't believe it, man. I can't believe it. They brought it on themselves. Yeah, they kind of did. They kind of did. I mean, you want to believe in feminism. I mean, that's a shot. It's just basically shooting your own self in the foot. You'll be working till you're dead. All right? That's just basically it. All right? That's basically how it's going to go. All right? When it comes to that. They split after many years together. Stephanie became the full-time custodial parent, so her ex-husband was supposed to pay her child support. But from the start, she says, he told her he couldn't afford it. He just always paid me less. Such that when their older child turned 18, her ex unilaterally just lowered the amount he paid me every month. So she covers everything: college tuition, medical costs, activities, the works. With child support set to end at age 19, it didn't make sense to take him back to court to force him to pay, she says, because it would have required time, money, and resources I don't have. It's not like every woman paying her ex resents him, but for those who know they've been killing it at their jobs while their husbands flopped at domestic tasks like grocery shopping or parenting their own children, the prospect of pony up makes these women super extra mad, she says. Oh, man. I think that might be why women might have an even more visceral reaction than the man who thinks his wife only sits at home and eats bonbons and drives kids to school and goes to PTA meetings. Oh, man. I mean, this is crazy, yo. This is just hilarious. It is fun. It's a fun read. But this just goes to show, man. I mean, this is how feminism backfires on women. And now they have to just deal with the consequences. So tell me what you think about this. Let me know in the comments, okay? Everything about this channel, the link's in the description box. I'll see you guys later. Cheers.